Well,
So you're
Dominic, why don't you start with the introductions?
All right. I'm Dominic. I'm a T5 para complete. Been paralyzed now 25 years from a car accident back in Michigan. It was right after my 16th birthday, about 3 weeks after. And I've been in wheelchair sports and activities of all types ever since.
Cool.
How about Eric? Oh, Christine?
I'm Christine Beecham. I'm an occupational therapist at Banner Physical Therapy, formerly Good Sam. I work in outpatient neuro. I also do the seating clinic here as a seating mobility specialist, and I help out with this event.
Thank you. Corbin. We can't hear you, Corbin.
No sound, amigo.
Well, and Eric.
I didn't mean to make him mad.
I'm out of here.
Screw you guys. I'm going
Eric,
home.
why don't you go?
My name's Eric Kenning. I work for the Arizona Spinal Cord Injury Association. My injury is a T11, T12, right around there. I am a partial paralysis, or incomplete, I guess. And it was a birth injury. It was a spinal cord birth injury. I was born breech and in labor for extended periods of time. So yeah, that's my deal. And I've been doing this my whole life. So next.
All right. Kristen. They're muted. Karen.
Yeah.
That's me.
Oh, that was on your end?
Anybody can do it.
I've got cats running around and they're very loud, so I'm just trying to keep myself muted when I'm not talking.
It's all good.
Okay, so did you say my name so I could introduce myself? Okay.
Yes.
My name's Kristen. I am a physical therapy student at ATSU, and this class was brought to our attention from mine and Kendra's neuro rehab professor, and I thought it was interesting and wanted to check it out.
All right, Kendra.
You basically did all the work for me. We're second year PT students at AT still, and so we were just checking out and seeing what's going on. I also have a lot of noise going on currently, like trucks driving by and ice cream trucks, so I'll mute myself too.
Okay, Karen.
Ooh, 'tis the time. I'm Karen Halgren from the Spinal Cord Injury Association. I'm a T12 incomplete for almost 18 years from a hit and run motorcycle accident.
All right, Corbin, you got volume yet?
Yeah, I think probably I do.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Good trick.
I'm Corbin. I've been using a chair since '92, and I'm, I guess, one of the instructors. Do a bunch of stuff. Done a few sports, done a few different things here and there. Just like to tinker. So.
All right, and I'm Gary Venjon. I've been in a chair since 1978, and T12 paraplegic complete. Yeah, Corbin, it's been a long time. Been a long ride. Hell of a ride, but it's been a long ride.
Right.
Anyway, I'm one of the instructors also, and I don't instruct much anymore. I just listen to these geniuses that we have doing it. So.
Jeez Louise. What do you want?
Oh.
What we're going to cover today's episode or class is, I think, if I remember correctly, is this accessing your environment, which we will cover learning about how to do wheelies, the purpose for the wheelies and things like that, curb ramps, just getting through doorways or anything else we might be able to do on Zoom. We normally do these in person, and we have, some facilities set up that have all this physical plant where we can actually do these things. So bear with us. But you two students down there on the bottom, can you both hear me? Is there anything particular that you would like to get out of this class that you might be studying right now, or questions you have that we might touch on before we get started, since you are new, or not new here necessarily, but the students here that might gain something from this information that we can give you. So if you have something that you would like us to cover today, why don't you let us know, and then we'll go from there, instead of us just throwing things at you you think you might want.
I can't really think of anything. We actually just took our exam on spinal cord injury and MS and Parkinson's this morning. So we've learned like the basis of all of that. So I think just kind of seeing it in action would be.
So your
awesome.
mind's fresh now. It's not muddy at all, right?
It's a little gone right now.
It was midterm week, so.
Oh, yeah, those are the
I
fun weeks.
understand that. I remember a long time ago going to college, and after you took midterms, your final exams, it was like just a big dump. And you just had a blank mind after that.
Yeah.
That was in a one-room classroom, wasn't it?
What do you mean? What do you mean one room? We didn't even have a room. It was outdoors.
With an
First,
average.
first
Around
period
the
was
fire
wheel,
pit. That's it, what it was.
first period
man.
was wheel chiseling. Tink, 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 tink.
I had the best wheel. Two rock ones. Put them on my chair. Nice ride.
Oh, goodness.
Anyway, Corbin, since you're such a smart ass, let's start with you, and let's talk us through some wheelies and give us some demonstration, would you?
Okay. Wheelies. Let's do wheelies. So
You're gonna
wheelies have a lot. Wheelies have a lot to do with your chair setup. And they're important to do with a lot of stuff. But wheelies kind of want to just have the center of gravity, and you want to be able to know where that is, and then just kind of pop the thing up, and you want to keep your weight over the center of gravity, and everything. So wheelies are important to, like, the farther your axle is back, the harder you're going to have to really kick up to do a wheelie. Mine, I basically just have to kind of flex my hips or exhale or fart or something, and I'm in a wheelie. And they're super important. I like to keep the what we call like the front end of my chair. I like to keep light, so that when I'm going over the sidewalk, my front wheels just float over in any inconsistencies or anything like that. So in effect, I'm doing little tiny wheelies all day long, because any little crack that maybe I don't see or
Or a garden hose.
oh my God.
Ouch.
Man.
Ouch.
So yeah, so anything like that, like a garden hose or something like that. My front end is light enough that my front wheels just kind of pop over it. So I can with my hips, I can just kind of control my chair, just kind of pop my chair over stuff.
Corbin, can you stop a minute?
Yeah.
Let me point out something. On Corbin's chair, you can see his axle on his chair, and with a part of his body, it's almost up to his chest, that much further forward, almost to his chest level, not mid-body or not late body, but almost to the front of his chest is where you're going to see that axle. And that's why his wheelies will pop up so easily, because the weight is on the back of the chair. Now, for a novice, that's not probably going to be a good setup, because they're probably going to go over backwards quite often. So starting out, but after you're in the chair a while, you can do that. There's paras that are super paras or something that are going to pick that up right away, and they can do that. Others can't. And so that chair setup, which at some point, I don't think we covered chair setup today. Isn't that the last session?
Yeah.
Brian?
Yes,
Wheelchair
that is correct.
Okay, so Corbin, I'm sorry to interrupt. So go ahead, start again, or begin. Start where you left off.
Yeah, so that's why I have my chair set up like this, is so that I can just float over things. And it also makes my chair a lot more maneuverable. It pivots around my body instead of me driving a truck around. As the person develops skills and balance and everything like that, a lot of times they'll start out with the axle will be in line with the backrest of the chair. So my backrest is right here, and the axle will be in line with the backrest. Mine is forward 6 inches from the backrest, so it's right on a balance point for me. So it works out really well for me. And you'll see in a few minutes when I hop up on this curb, how important a wheelie and a little bit of timing and technique are to make things a lot easier. And like, instead of me having to reach back to get on the top of my wheels are the top of my wheels are right here. It's right in a good push position. And then like I said, my chair pivots right around my body. So as I go around, you can see my torso basically stays in the same spot. If I didn't have that, my torso would probably still stay pretty close in the same spot, but the front of my chair would be swinging way around. Because a lot of times the chair would be a lot longer. It'd be 6 inches longer, in theory, on my chair. If my axle was back to my backrest, the front of my chair would be 6 inches, stick out 6 inches farther. So I've designed my chair to be as compact as possible because of all the traveling and everything that I do. So that's a little bit on wheelies. Anything that you do with a chair is going to be give and take. If you set your chair up really, really light and tippy for wheelies, you're going to have issues, somewhere else. One of the things is my chair is so short that I have to pay attention to the garden hoses and the huge cracks and stuff like that. Because if I hit one of those and get stuck on it, my weight is over the front end quicker than if my chair was longer. So there's give and take on every single thing.
Good, thanks, Corbin. I'm back, by the way.
Introduce yourself, Brian.
So for those of you, since you already did their introductions, my name is Brian Mazoyer. I'm a physical therapist assistant. I'm also the rep here in Arizona for Permobile Corporation, and I help to facilitate these classes. So welcome, everybody. I'm glad that it looks like we have everybody back from last time. I don't see a couple of faces that I actually don't see a couple of faces here, so it looks like a couple of people are missing. And I got a text from Gene, and Gene Hepburn. He's not going to be here because he's got some health issues going on. I said, so don't worry about it. We're fine. So it looks like you guys went through introductions already.
Yes.
And then so Corbin
Started on wheelies.
Started with wheelies, and that's fine. So and I came in part way through the wheelies there, Corbin. So did you talk about, so what, why learn how to do wheelies in the first place?
I did. Okay,
good. Okay, I saw the head nod. Okay, good. And I think that I've always thought that it's an important thing for someone who's a wheelchair user that to be able to have as much control over their chair, because if you have more control of your chair, you have better control over your environment as well. Would you guys think that's a reasonable thing? Or agree with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, for lack of a better way to put it, I mean, our wheelchairs are our shoes. It's an extension of our bodies. It's how we get around. And so the better fit your chair is, the easier it is to get around. Like Corbin said, having a lightweight chair, having it set up correctly, the correct center of gravity, the right wheelbase, all those different things, they make a world of difference just in daily life. Myself, I've been very fortunate that right out of the gate, I was able to have custom built wheelchairs specifically built for me and lightweight wheelchairs. I've had the experience on a couple occasions where I've been in, like, say, your typical folding frame hospital chair, and it is absolutely night and day difference. The weight, the maneuverability, everything is so opposite. You know, to kind of go on, you know, like with the wheelies and stuff too, is wheelies were probably the first skill I learned in the hospital, and I was so glad that I did when I was in rehab. They didn't think so, because I could reach back and I could actually grab my anti-tips and flip them up, and I was doing wheelies in the hallway in the rehab hospital, and the nurses, they didn't really dig that so much, but it was a skill that I knew I needed.
So you've always been a loose cannon in a chair then, huh?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, Corbin had mentioned too, and Brian had said is that wheelies are I always call it kind of the, like, gateway skill, because it's the foundation for so many other things. Like Corbin said, being able just simply to get over obstacles or uneven pavement, things like that. Something as simple as being able to take pressure off from your back from sitting in a chair for too long during a day. To, you know, like Corbin said, he's going to show later how to, you know, dump up and down like a curb. And to be able to do that, you have to master a wheelie first. You have to be comfortable with that. And a lot of people, say the technical part of a wheelie, it's most people know, you know, you push your wheels forward and that pops the front end of the chair up.
Well, this is a perfect opportunity for you to show that too. Demonstrate as you're talking.
Okay.
Roll back. I know Corbin did a little bit, but also just to kind of reinforce things, and from a different perspective and a different, you know, a different injury level and chair setup than what Corbin is using.
So, like, Corbin, he's a much lower level injury than me. He's got, like, ab control and things like that, and I am a higher injury. I'm, like, from here down, and so I don't have that ab support to be able to move, especially in a wheelie. But I've also done the same thing where I've similarly set my chair up to be very, very easy in you know, popping it up. I can do just like a little bit of a hip flick to be able to get my chair up, or just a little bit of a hand movement. And that's probably one of the biggest things, is that it's very fine movements to maintain a wheelie. People think, you know, it's kind of like driving a car and you know, the steering wheel's going all over the place and you're still going straight. Whereas this is just little itty bitty movements. And you can, you know, you can turn, you can do anything, you can move forward. Today I was actually working in the backyard and I had bins on my lap, full of, like, brush and things like that. And I was moving around in a wheelie. It becomes resourceful in so many different scenarios. Trying to think of different ones, but like I said, there's so many different things.
Well, let me add something about when you're doing wheelies, or even you guys teaching wheelies. The hand position, if you notice these guys, when they do the wheelie, they get their chair up into the wheelie, but they bring their chair back to, like, or their hands back on the wheels, like at a 1 o'clock position. You always want to make sure that you have plenty of wheel either to go forward or backwards. Like if your hand's all the way forward and your chair front starts coming down, you can't push forward to get the chair back up anymore. So you want to recalibrate where your hands are once you get up in the wheelie. You can do that in small increments, or you can do it in a large one, like these guys are good enough now where they can bring their hand all the way back and maintain the wheelie. But when a client may be first starting, they may have to do smaller increments than that to move them back. But you want to make sure that hand comes back to a place where you have some control over the chair by having the hands on the wheel in the proper position.
That's a good point, Gary. And also, one of the things from the therapist side for safety, when I was teaching wheelies to my patients, is I always made sure that they were in a safe environment. That, you know, I don't want to have someone who is a paraplegic, I don't want to make them a tetraplegic. So I want to make sure that they're able to practice those wheelies in a safe environment, unlike Dominic going off and doing who knows what he was doing when he was in the hospital. So one of the things that I always do is I take, and I'll use a gait belt, and I put it onto a non-removable part of the chair, which generally is the axle tube, camber tube it's called, that goes across the back of on a rigid frame chair. And I'll attach that to it, and I'll stand behind them so that if they were to go all the way backwards over, just like if I'm walking with a patient, I can catch them. Same thing. If they are going over backwards, I show them I've got their back, that they're not going to go anywhere. And I'll even go so far as to, when the first time I do it with them, I'll tip them backwards over so that they can feel, hey, I'm not going to let you go anywhere to the floor here. Your head will not make contact with the floor as long as I'm standing behind you. And then typically when I was teaching wheelies to someone, I would usually have a chair. Now I can do wheelies in a chair. So I would have another chair there that I would use to demonstrate to my patient what we're doing. So what I would do, just so they remember that I'm not behind them, don't do something stupid, I'll put the gait belt across their shoulder and I'll say, remember, I'm not there. I'm going to sit in the chair and show you what I want you to do. And then I would go back and forth that way. That way they're working in a safe environment, and I don't have, even when they get really good at them, I still kind of cringe when someone goes into a wheelie a little bit, because you never know what's going to happen. And even it's happened to me, I've gone over backwards. Even teaching classes and things, I've gone crazy and, see what, you go over backwards in a chair. It's like, oops. But I try to do things as safe as possible for my patients. So keep that in mind when you guys when you therapists are teaching patients, your patients, to do things, to keep that in mind.
What he just said there is one of the things you guys should learn. Any skill that you want to teach a patient, you should know how to do it yourself if you can, to learn it yourself. So it'll help.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I always taught things to my patients, and I always thought that if I'm teaching something to someone, I should be able to do it. So I always believe that if I can't do it, then I'm probably not going to teach it to the person. But oh, isn't that sweet, Karen? Yeah, there's not very much. A long time ago, there wasn't very much I couldn't do in a wheelchair. So I always thought it was really important that I be able to teach that to someone, and not, because I see therapists nowadays, I see them young kids out there teaching people, and they're looking at stuff at YouTube on their phone, and they're saying, well, here's what we want to do, but yet they can't do it. So I think it's an important thing for, as a therapist, to be able to know how to do that. So
as a therapist,
what's that?
As a therapist, I use people like Brian or my other manufacturers to have those demo chairs that we can either play or kind of know the different features of, so that we can kind of use all our community resources and be knowledgeable about what different types of chairs there are.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing, with therapists that are out there, is that, knowing, learning who, finding out the people that are in the know, who is your rep, who knows things about chairs. And because it is, there's not a ton of therapists out there that know a whole lot about wheelchairs. I'm looking at one of the best sitting in front of me here is Christine. And but it's a very small community that does wheelchair skills and knows the things about, wheelchair setup and things. So it's something that is a little bit of a niche, if you will. Did anybody
Karen,
have any?
Yeah, Gary. To get a wheelchair then.
Karen, what happened to Joshua?
What happened to what?
Joshua, he was here a little bit ago. Now he's just, his name's there.
Oh, he's here. He took his video off.
You want to introduce Joshua? You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Joshua. I'm Josh. I recently got in my accident in May. Spent a few months in the hospital. Now I'm out. I'm a graduate student at ASU, and yeah, that sums it up for now.
Okay.
Sorry, I was eating, so I didn't want everyone to watch me eat.
that's okay. This network, sometimes we have problems losing people and bringing them back. And I didn't know if we needed to call the cops or not, but
There you go. What are you studying, Joshua?
Computer science.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So welcome to the group here.
Thank you.
So did anybody have any questions about anything that we talked about with and showing the wheelies and stuff and how that might work for you or any of the therapists on the phone here?
I guess kind of a question. It might have been touched on. I might have just missed it. Aside
Okay.
from Dominic saying that he took to wheelies right away and was cruising around and making everyone terrified, we have practiced a little bit doing wheelies. Last year in one of our classes. We did get to try out a couple different kinds of wheelchairs with different kinds of setups and everything, and we got to practice it a little bit, and it for me personally did not go well. It is a terrifying skill for me, and I knew that there was someone back there to catch me, so I kind of was just wondering if you guys are willing to share kind of what your experience was like learning that and having that trust in your therapist when you were learning kind of that skill right off the bat.
Well, Chris, one of the things that you should do at first when you're having those issues with the chair and you can't seem to catch on to the wheelie after a while, look at the chair setup and make sure it's set up for you, that you can use it. And then as far as the wheelies goes, I caught on pretty quick too with most everything they were trying to teach me. And but the confidence in the therapist was that she was honest with me. When she might have not known something or the first time she was doing it or something, she would tell me, and she says, I'll study up on this tonight and we'll come back and try it tomorrow. So I think the best thing is just to be honest with your clients and, don't try to snooker them or anything else. Just be honest with them, because once they catch you in a lie or something else, then it's lost. They probably won't trust you on anything else, but just do the best you can. And it comes with experience. Christine, doesn't it come with experience? You're a therapist.
It does. And I think you have to, yes, I can do wheelies, I can do some of these skills, but it's the people that are around me right now in this Zoom meeting that using mentors and using people that are living it is really, it's information that I can't really live up to. So I'm kind of using my friends, my instructors, the resources. Arizona Spinal Cord Injury Association has a mentorship program. So if you're working with somebody, it's nice to kind of hook them up with somebody that's also has gone through it. And this class we do every fall and spring, it's better live, but we're making do. It does take a long time. And yes, I'm surrounded by people that, wow, you guys are just like superstar athletes, and you guys can do the floor transfers, and you can do crazy one-handed drinking wheelies, right? All our new injuries can't do that. So it takes some time to build those skills, and that's normal. We have some shining stars around us right now, and it's to show people that it can be done, but it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of body awareness and practice and all the things that we're teaching them to get there.
Plus, all of us have been on the floor many, many times, or on the ground, or wherever. Trust me, it's the only way you learn this stuff. A lot of times, for us being in a chair, is you got to fall, you got to fail, because you will learn. Then I'm not going to do that again. It's what it comes down to. So it just takes time.
The experience.
Yeah, I mean, every time that something not so great happens to you in a chair, it is certainly an opportunity for a learning experience. And I know that Corbin has a great story about when he first came home. No, not the hose. When you first came home.
Oh,
and
the
I
dog
think,
one.
And I think the dog one. Yeah, I think that's a great story because it really shows, it shows how your skills are improving and the things that you learned when you were in therapy. So do you mind sharing that story? Because I think it's a great story. I just love hearing it.
So when I was, it was the first time that I got to like a pass to go home, and I had been working on wheelies in therapy in the hospital in inpatient therapy, and I got a pass to go home for the weekend. and I was practicing wheelies on the carpet in my living room. And the dog that we had was really happy to have me home. And I was practicing wheelies, and I'm going forward, riding a wheelie forward, and then riding wheelies backwards, and turning and doing everything in a wheelie and doing stuff. Well, I was practicing forward, and I was practicing backward, and the dog had dropped a bone or a toy behind me, and my wheels hit that. So one of my wheels hit that bone or toy, and my chair kept going. The wheel stopped, but my chair kept going, and I flipped over backwards. And instantly I remembered what I was told, that if I do go over backwards, to lift my head so I don't whack my head on the ground. Because if you go over backwards, you're probably going to whack your head on the ground. So I was really happy that I remembered. I tucked my head up. But the thing that I didn't remember or realize, that I had no muscle control in my legs. So I tucked my head up, and as soon as my back hit the ground, both of my knees came and hit me right in the face. Put my teeth through my lips, and gave me a bloody nose. So I went back to the hospital on Monday morning, and the weekend definitely went better in my head. So, but it was one of those things where now, it was a hard lesson to learn, but I learned that lesson that, now I actually have feeling in my wheels. And that sounds weird, but you do. When you use a chair for a long time, your feeling extends down through the entire frame of your chair. I can tell when I run over a zip tie at work. I can feel that in my rear, on my rear wheel, a 26-inch wheel. I can feel that I'm running over a zip tie. I can feel when I'm going down a curb. I can feel right when the split second before my wheels go over the edge. I know exactly when I'm on the edge without even looking, because I can feel that in the wheels of my chair. And you just get that. I know the exact dimensions of my chair, so I can look at a space when I'm cruising through somewhere. I know exactly that I can go through that space, or whether or not I can or can't go through that space. And it catches me off guard sometimes, because I'll get in a different chair or something like that, and it literally it's an inch wider, and I'll whack stuff. Or do something like that and just forget that I'm in something a little bit wider. My dog really likes the UPS guy, so she's really saying hi to him right now. Yeah, so it's just one of those things where you just become so in tune with things, and without learning that little bit of a lesson, where now if I'm going backwards in a wheelie or something like that, and I feel something, I have enough control that I can stop immediately, or I can actually, it sounds really strange, but it's true. I can actually feel how big that object is, and whether or not I can instantly go over it or not. So it's just, it's one of those things. But at that point, I could not. And I went back and really, whacked that hard. And then I went on to the second lesson of the weekend, was Florida chair transfers. And
That was last week.
No, that was the lesson that I went right on to when I fell on the floor.
I know.
I had to practice Florida chair transfers for 40 minutes, because I had a brace on from my waist to my chest and a cast on my hand. So trying to get to my chair was quite a trick.
Yeah, that added weight must have really been fun.
Oh yeah.
Hey, you know what? We were talking about, doing wheelies and falling backwards. But I know for myself, and the rest of you guys can comment on this, I probably go out of my chair forward 10 times more than I go out backwards.
Yeah.
So the ability to fall forward and not to sprain wrist or anything else like that, or hyperextend them and stuff like that, is important to know also. So really, once they're out there, and if you're active in the community, you're going to go out forward out of your chair more than you're going to go out backwards or sideways out of your chair, more than you're probably going to fall over backwards. Do you guys why don't you guys comment on it too, you wheelchair users?
That's probably true. I've done that. Like I've come out of my patio door here and I have to go up over the little tracks of the sliding door, and then my patio is slightly downhill, so I'm kicked downhill. And every once in a while, the guys that come over here do work for me will leave an extension cord across there, and it's, you know, they don't tuck it right up against there, so I'm rolling over all the stuff at the same time. And one time I came out, and right when I planted my casters on the ground, I was right behind that extension cord, hit that extension cord, and I was already leaning forward a little bit, and I went down decently hard, and it was already after I was about three or 4 weeks after like a weird shoulder injury, and so it was, you know, it was kind of tough. But no, I agree with that. I probably go out more forward than backwards now, and you just have to know how to fall. So when your hand hits the ground, you don't just try to totally stop yourself unless you're going slow enough that you can touch the ground. But if you're going to slap the ground, you need to know how to hit the ground, break, elbow, shoulder, and, you know, fall safely without injury.
That's to go on with that one. That's one of the things, like, you know, we're here teaching skills of like how to do a wheelie, but on the other side of that, and it's also just as important, is to know what happens when things do go sideways, because they will. You know, any one of us, I mean, I'm probably well, besides Karen, probably the shortest person being in a chair, and I've been doing this for 25 years, and I still fall out. I fall out at least once a week, forward, backward, it's a mix. And that was one of the things, you know, like we talked about last week was, and we brought it up this week, is the Florida chair transfers and things like that. Being able to get back up when you do fall out of your chair. To know, like Corbin just said, how to fall, how to prevent injury, or to, you know, set yourself up to get back up into your chair, or prevent yourself from falling all the way to the ground in the first place. There's different ways to recover that. And so you kind of have to know those things as well. And then one of the things that I teach a lot is to get over the panic instinct that most people have. And I know Brian was talking earlier about using the gait belt and not letting someone fall when they start to tip backwards. But just as so many other things, learning what it feels like to actually fall. So many people are so scared to fall because they're scared of what it's going to feel like. You know, Corbin had a really bad experience of his knees coming down and hitting his face. You know, I've gone over backwards, and I've hit like the corner of a table into my spine. You know, just that was how I fell. And so by allowing people to fall in a controlled situation, you know, maybe it's on a mat in a therapy room, allowing them to go over backwards and feel what it's like, they lose that panic instinct, and they're less likely to really jerk the wheels when they start to lose balance. Because again, like I was saying earlier, you know, it's once you're in the wheelie, it's very, very fine movement. And you don't want to jerk the wheels, and people will do that when they panic. And so you want to alleviate that, you know, as much as you can. You want to teach that as part of it, you know, the bad parts of things as much as you can. And like Brian was saying, you know, in as safe of an environment as possible, as controlled as you can. It's going to happen. Corbin's been in a chair longer than me. Gary's been in a chair longer than me. And so is Eric. And we all still do fall. We all do still have those instances. It's going to happen no matter what.
Hey, Joshua, do you have any particular questions that we might be able to help you with?
Not so much at the moment.
Okay.
I spent about a month in an inpatient kind of rehab hospital, And we did a lot of the stuff that you guys are talking about right now. Not so much of practicing falling, but actually, practicing like going backward, like getting up from going backwards and stuff like that. And I've been, practicing my wheelie, and it's pretty decent now. Obviously, could always use some work there, but I've been pretty lucky, honestly. I've picked everything up pretty quickly. But it really, when I first arrived at the hospital, I couldn't even sit. I wasn't even sitting in a chair until 1 month of practice, and I was finally getting to move around. It just, when I first got there, I didn't think I could do any of the stuff that maybe Dominic or Corbin or all of you guys are doing. I didn't think I would be able to do that stuff. But it just takes time, and yeah, as a new wheelchair user, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in at once. But
Are
Well,
you,
in the fourth session that we have, we're going to be talking some about different sports and things that people do. And Dominic does a lot, Corbin does a lot, Eric does some, and I'm retired. I don't do nothing anymore. But anyway, it might be some good information for you. I don't know if you're interested in doing any sports or anything, but they can talk about different adaptive equipment and other things that might be available for people.
of course, that would be really interesting.
are you here in Phoenix, Joshua?
I'm in Mesa.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But
Yeah, we do a monthly newsletter and whatnot too, if you want to get on that.
yeah, of course.
It has a lot of our events and whatnot. So,
I'd love to. I'd love to be a part of that.
okay, yeah, we'd love to have you.
Awesome.
Yeah, lucky for me, I'm in a power chair, so I've only fallen out once in my chair. When a guy stopped at a green light, my husband slammed the brakes on. The one day I didn't have my seatbelt on, I fell out and somehow landed between my chair and the center console of we had a big cargo type van, and I had completely flipped around, was facing the back of the van. To this day, I have no idea how I did it, because I'm a big girl.
And you quit drinking after that, didn't you?
Well, I won't. I didn't quit, I just drink less. Yeah, it's a wonder I had no broken bones, nothing.
Eric, Corbin, you guys got anything to add?
No,
haven't.
not really. I mean, I generally use my wheelies to help get over obstacles. So, like, I go camping, and when I'm going over rough terrain with these little casters, I need to pop wheelies to get through the terrain itself, the gravel and the sticks and the leaves and the brush and stuff like that. And yeah, it can be very exhausting. That's one thing about being in a wheelchair. You use a lot of energy doing this stuff. So, don't get frustrated with yourself if you get tired either. That just comes with doing this. We really recommend working out. Join basketball team, do weightlifting, do any of that sort of stuff, because if you're in a chair, you're in it for the long haul, really. I work with the organization, so and I've been through a lot of the system too. I've been through voc rehab to help with schooling. I've done a lot of this sort of stuff, and so if you ever want to tap into any of that, just get a hold of us. Here at the organization, we can definitely get you a lot of resources. We have a lot of donations too. So.
And Karen just posted your email address and her email address on the chat line. So feel free to make use of that, guys.
Yeah, and you can also go to our website at azspinal.org, and that has our general phone number there, and you can get a hold of any of us that way too. So.
All right, Corbin, what do you got to do? What's next, Brian?
So we're gonna kind of continue with wheelies, because I think Corbin, are you set up for curbs?
Yep.
Okay, so Corbin is set up for curbs. So so this is just an extension of the wheelie, if you will. So being able to take the wheelie now and go from one level to a higher level. And that's, so Corbin's gonna show us on this little curb here, or a table it looks like. And he's gonna talk through kind of what he does when he's approaching the curb, kind of things that he looks at when he's going to go up the curb, and how he completes the transition up onto the curb, and as well as going back down it. You're on.
Okay, so yeah, so just looking at it, being aware of your environment, I assess the height of the curb, and it's one of those things where it's, you know, now I can look at a curb and say, nope, I'm gonna find the ramp. Or I can look at the curb and say, yeah, I can probably do that. A lot of parking lots or whatever where I'll go and you look between the cars or whatever, because sometimes the curb is higher and there's a spot that's lower, and I'll be like, okay, I'll do that one because that's going to make life a lot easier for me at this moment. So one of the things that I do is you have to sort of learn how to ride a wheelie, where you coast but keep the wheels in your hands, and so you have some control. And then I'm going to come up to this curb, and right when my wheels hit the edge of the curb, I'm actually going to do a little bit of a weight shift. So my hands are going to be at the top of the wheels, and I'm just going to lift myself up that much. Like I'm just going to take this weight off of my chair, and then it's just a matter of physics. I'm 190 pounds. I'm going to take that 190 pounds and roll this 15-pound chair, because if my hands are forward of top dead center and I lift my weight up, you know, it's gonna roll forward, and I'm just gonna roll this chair right up the curb. So I don't need that big of a running start, but I just do a little bit of a lift, and then coming down is the same way. I'll just do that because that's kind of small to turn around. I'll kind of add it the other way and just do that. And it's such a small little weight shift that it almost doesn't look like I'm doing a weight shift, but I'm lifting my body off that chair by that much. And it's just enough to get that chair to roll up underneath me again. And it just makes it really easy to do.
And you can also see the importance of being able to control the wheelie, because as he starts to roll forward there, you can see how his casters are kind of hanging out in no man's land for a little bit there before he goes off the curb. So if he doesn't have the control of the wheelie, you could see a catastrophe waiting to happen there. So if he gets back up onto the box there again, so you can see as he comes forward, he's pausing for that moment as he's kind of rolling forward. So he didn't have good control of that wheelie. If he comes down on those front casters now, the possibility of him coming out of that chair is pretty high. But you can see as he kind of slowly rolls forward, when he talked about feeling where he is in the chair, he can actually feel the edge of that curb as you start to change in your position and come down it. And you can see how he just comes down really, really nice and gently. It's not a forceful thing. It's actually just a weight transfer as he talks about moving it, coming up the curb and then also going down the curb, just controlling and just letting that wheel just kind of slowly slide through your hand as you come down nice and gently on the back wheels, and the front casters come down to the ground really easily.
That's important. Make sure the casters come down last.
Yeah, you don't want them to come down. Generally, you don't want them to come down first, because that will usually cause lots of problems for you, and then you might be doing a floor transfer to get back into the chair.
Exactly.
And so by being able to control that wheelie, then it's just going to be a matter of, you know, how high of a curb are you comfortable with? And when I'm teaching someone, you know, I start small. I'll start, you know, just kind of lifting your casters up over objects just to clear those objects, and then we'll start climbing up on them and then get taller and taller to find out, okay, you know, what's your, you know, just like Corbin said, what's my comfort zone? You look at one curb and go, yeah, that's a piece of cake, or look at another one and go, yeah, I don't think so. Where's the ramp? And it's also by being able to have to be able to do a wheelie and be able to do a curve, then that also changes your options for going into doorways. So for instance, looking in the background here at Corbin's shop, what's the difference between the distance between the front of your Mazda there and that green jack that's in the corner? Corbin.
What do you mean?
So
How
turn
much?
around. So the green jack that's over against the wall, how far is that from the car that you just rolled past? Are we talking like 20 feet or maybe more?
15 or 17 feet. Yeah, about 20 feet.
So if so you've come to a doorway, that's where that Mazda is. The ramp is over where the jack is. So if you're able to get up and down a curb that you're comfortable with doing, and there is the door right there, you can make your choice and decide, okay, I'm just going to go up the curb right here because I don't now have to roll an extra 30 feet during the day. And that's just that many fewer times that I've got to push that chair in both of those directions. So I talked about earlier, I said, having control over your chair also helps to give you control over your environment. This is another way that you have control over your environment, because now you have the choice. If you can't do a wheelie and you can't do a curb, your choice is you go to the ramp 20 feet away and come back to the doorway. So this way it's given Corbin the opportunity to be able to decide which he wants to do. Today I'm going to be lazy. I'm just going to go up the curb. Or today I'm just going to, I don't want to go up the curb. I'm going to go down and then go up the ramp. So it just depends on what you want to do at the time. So it allows you to have, that's a big dog. It allows you to have, to make the choice of what you want to do at that particular instance. And is that kind of how you look at things, Dominic, also, when you're doing?
Yeah. When you learn those skills, you open that decision, like Brian was saying, am I going to go all the way down to the other end where the ramp is, or am I going to try to take the curb? You get those options. Kind of a funny story, as you guys were talking about the difference. I went to a restaurant with a friend of mine here, I don't know, it's a couple months ago, and I did exactly that. We were parked around the corner. I wasn't even in a handicap spot. So I parked around the corner from the entrance, and instead of going all the way back around to where the ramp was, I was like, oh, I'll just jump up the curb, right in front of me, and we'll go into the restaurant. Well, I went to jump the curb and got sideways as I was going up and ended up tipping over like really slowly. And it was one of those like controlled falls. And I fell down to the sidewalk. And my friend that's there with me, him and I have been friends for years, like 20 years. And he's seen me fall. He knows the roll. Well, he sees me fall and he starts laughing. Well, there's people out in front of the restaurant.
They're horrified.
Just standing there laughing at me. And here's, guy in a wheelchair now on the ground. And he's just standing there like 5-10 feet from me laughing. And this one guy comes over and he actually asked if I needed any help. And he goes, I kind of figure you've done this before because your friend's just standing there laughing instead of helping you. He goes, do you need a hand? And I said, no, it's okay. I can get up on my own. And so I get up into my chair and he's like, yeah, man, I want to see how you do this. And so I did. I got back up into my chair, and on second thought, I decided, you know what? I'm not going to be lazy. I'm going to go around because this curb is too big for me. So, yeah, sometimes that decision doesn't go right.
Hey, you guys, when you're looking at a curb and stuff, what and Brian mentioned it earlier too. Can you point out some environmental hazards that you might encounter on a curb, such as it being painted and a few other things? Why don't you talk about that when you guys? And the other thing is, I'm going to have to leave here in a little bit. So if you see me disappear, it's nice to see all you guys. I'll see you next week.
Okay. So painting is a big one. and I'll start with that one because when I talked about falling during a class, I was actually teaching at one of the colleges here in town, and I was doing wheelchair skills class, and they wanted to see going up a curb. I said, well, sure, I can do that. So I didn't even look at the curb that closely, which had been just freshly painted, and it is after concrete has been painted several times, it is just slick as snot. And I hit that curb perfectly, and those wheels didn't go anywhere, and I flipped right over backwards. And so after I got up and brushed myself off and looked at it, and I said, okay, now I know what to do. And then I went up the curb again. But I'm sure you guys have all had that happen, something like that before. So I'll let you guys take that too.
Oh yeah, I can absolutely concur with the slippery pavement when they paint like the red or yellow on the curbs, especially if it's been raining or it's wet at all. Oh yeah, so slippery. Going off, coming down the curb, same deal. You'll just slide. One of the things that I did want to bring up is Gary mentioned about like obstacles, and we haven't talked too much about it. Is kind of the terrain. You know, when you're doing stuff, you want to survey and see what am I getting into. If I jump down this curb, what's going to be, say, right in front of me or further down. If I jump up the curb, what's gonna be there. There have been times where the concrete curb is maybe only 6 inches wide at the top, and it's grass on the other side. And so you have to be able to jump up and maintain a wheelie and sort of balance up on that sort of razor's edge that is the curb and come down. Otherwise, you know, like they were saying about your front wheels coming down first, if your front wheels go into the grass, it's going to stop the chair and you're going to fall out. Same thing going down. A lot of times when you're on the streets, like say at a crosswalk, and you go down a curb, there's a lot of like uneven pavement in the gutter, and that can be pretty treacherous as well. So you have to be very aware of your surroundings when you're doing these sort of things, because the immediate thing could be fine, but just after that it could be ugly. And then also too, you know, if it's gravel, if it's grass, you know, those sort of things. And sometimes I've even like been in places where you come down, or you're even going down a sidewalk, and you'll see like broken glass on the sidewalk. And most of us run pneumatic tires. So, you know, you want to be aware of that as well in getting a potential flat. It's just another sort of obstacle, I guess.
One of the other things to look for is that when a curb is poured, the curb and sidewalk are poured the concrete is poured in two different sections. The curb is poured first, and then the sidewalk is poured later. So before the sidewalk and the curb meet, there's a crack. And normally the curb comes up, that's going to be anywhere from 3 to 4, maybe 5 inches wide. And then you're going to have the sidewalk. And that's always shifting. One will be higher or lower than the other one. So you got to look at that. And then you also got to judge, like some people's chairs, like Corbin's got a narrow wheelbase where his front tires are close to his back tires. Now he may get caught up in that little crack, depending on how wide that is. You got to look at that, because you're popping up there when you bring down your caster coming out of the curb. If you hook in that little lip, it's going to stop you right there, halfway, you know, right on the edge of the curb and out there, or you may have momentum and flip you right forward out of the chair. So you got to look at that. And then coming down the curb, what you have, they poured that curb, and then they poured the asphalt in there. And even on curb cuts, which I think we'll talk about later, is you go down, and it was called gutter roll up or asphalt roll up, to where here in Arizona, especially when it heats up, that asphalt softens up a little bit, and as trucks and cars go around a corner, it'll start packing it down, and it pushes it towards that concrete, which doesn't give. The concrete does, so it rolls up a little bit. So you may have been there 3-4 months ago, and that was smooth, and now you go there in July, and it's not. It's going to have roll there's going to be a bump there or something that you're going to have to navigate and go over. So you always got to be, as you're rolling along, you always got to be looking at your environment, what's out in front of you, all the time, what's to your side. You just can't just go rolling and not be observant, because you'll end up crashing.
When you guys are rolling down the sidewalk, say, how far out in front of you are you looking generally?
Depends on how fast you're going. If I'm going slow, then usually it's just in, say, the first couple feet, maybe 3 feet. The faster I'm going, the further distance I'm looking ahead.
Okay.
That way, you know, because you're obviously going to come up onto, say, an obstacle or something a lot faster if you're traveling faster. So you want to be aware of the further distance.
That makes sense. Anybody do anything different as far as when you're rolling down the sidewalk, as far as how far you're looking or what you're looking for?
Always looking for sharp objects, cracks. You never know, there's broken glass everywhere. The other thing I was going to mention is, you know, there's going to come a time when you are going to fall. And, you know, we got some people here that are in the helping profession. And one warning I would give, and this is just me specifically, I think it applies to everyone, but I don't want to say for them, but when a person's falling, running to their aid during the fall a lot of times makes it worse. I've had people try to help me and it just throws me totally off balance and I fall worse than if you would have just let me fall. So, you know, as much as someone wants to help, it's good to back away until the event's over and then approach it. That's just
for help. Yeah. Hey, you're bleeding. Can I call an ambulance for you?
Yeah, I mean, really, because I mean, seriously, when you're falling, if you get tangled up in there, you could get hurt too, and or you could hurt the other person more. So that's not something anyone's trying to do, but it's just like, as hard as it is to not do anything, it's the best, I would say, the best protocol. So.
And that's a good point, Eric, where we as wheelchair users, we have to control our own environment with other people around us. So it's up to you to let people know what you need, what you don't need, and also you don't do it with a bitter attitude or anything else, because you are the representative for the next person that comes behind you that's got a disability. That person behind you is going to be judged how you treated that person right now. So always treat them well, unless they don't need to be treated that way, because there are some people that are just butts, and you know, that goes without saying. We all know those people, but you call me?
Like that.
Who are you
I don't know anybody like that. What are you talking about?
You look in the mirror lately?
Oh.
But anyway, I mean, like with the getting back in your chair or by the falling or anything else he was talking about, that's up to all of us that we have to do it. And I know that when we physically show you how to do these curbs, there's a couple other ways we do it is, you know, like when there's an able-bodied person helping the person in a wheelchair up a big curb. I mean, Brian's really good at that, how to show it sideways. And there's also a way to let them down backwards where you put your hip up against the back of the chair and let them down slowly. Well, there's different ways you can show that. But again, you have to tell that person exactly what you want them to do. Otherwise, we're going to try to do something that's going to cause more problems. So you have to be in control of the situation that you're in.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. To be in control of everything.
I have a couple examples for that to actually. So, in my car, I look really unstable. You know, I'm on a crutch, and I've had different occasions where people have offered. There's 3 different types. There's the person that walks by and says, "Do you need any help?" And I go, "No, I'm got it. I'm good. Thank you for asking." You know, and I always thank them because you never know. Like Gary said, the next person could definitely be in a situation where they do need help. So, you know, you want to thank them for their kindness. But then I've had other people who just bowl right in and they just They don't even care what I think. They just put my chair in, you know. It's very, very disrespectful of the whole person-to-person interaction. And so, and even then, I try to be grateful, but I'm just like, hey, you know, next time ask, you know, and I let them know that, you know, this thing that they're saying, doing whatever I'm doing, that they want to help, you know, I let them know that, you know, hey, this is my space. And sometimes when they do ask, I say, yes, I'm struggling right now. My legs aren't working. So yes, I will take your help. Thank you very much. So, I mean, there's different, you know, it's not always going to be the same. That's the thing. So, or like with opening doors, God, people get nuts about that stuff. You know, I go to open the door and, you know, oh, you know, and I'm a guy, I like opening the door for my wife. And 9 times out of 10, when I do that, some other schmo comes in and opens the door. And now my wife and I got to go through it. I'm just like, oh, you ruined it. Y'all ruined it. You know, I'm just like, gosh darn it, I can't even be a nice guy. What the hell? So, you know, I mean, that's just how it is, you know, and I still thank the people, you know, but sometimes, you know, people.
And most people, when they come to open the door, a lot of times they're insistent on, you know,
Yeah, they insist.
even if you say, no, I've got it. And when an able-bodied person opens the door, they're standing in the doorway.
You don't know to get out of the way.
Door's open, they're blocking the doorway.
Yeah.
So not helpful.
Well, see, with this days with COVID, you can always say, hey, thank you very much, but I'm highly contagious. You might want to step back. You know, just throw that out there. You might want to move away.
That's not how to be an ambassador.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Fine. I didn't say that. And actually, Eric did a nice segue, because unless someone's got any more questions about wheelies and curbs, we're going to move on to doorways. So
hey, I gotta go. I've got another phone call I gotta get on. So I'll see you guys next weekend.
all right. We'll see you next Thursday, Gary.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Great session.
Thanks. Hang up already. There he goes. Okay.
Now it's on.
And now we can talk about him. No. Yeah. So did anybody have any questions or any other comments on curbs or wheelies?
Well, I set up a little demonstration of how to assist, and you can sort of see how a person could assist.
Oh, okay. That's all that noise that's going on in the background was. Okay.
So
Any person.
you can say that this is a person, and you can see how, like, when I have a person do it, I tell them just to give me their hand, and they should just act like a post and let me do the pulling. Yeah. And then I have the control to come up a curb. Like that. And so, or like sometimes I'll find a street sign or something like that that's close to it, and I can use that as a thing, as an anchor. But whenever I have somebody help me go up a curb, I always instruct them, like they said, is, you know, to be an instructor and do it the way where you're in the most control of your situation, because you're ultimately the one that's gonna fall if they do something. A lot of people, if I ask for help, the first thing they do is they come back here, they go to grab the back of my chair. And there's two things about that. They're gonna make it really tough on themselves, because I'm not a little guy with my chair and everything like that. I'm like 205 and everything. So they're gonna have to lift all of that up. The other thing is if they do that, a lot of times when they do that, they start lifting before my rear wheels, my drive wheels are touching anything. So now if anything starts happening, I've got nothing to grab. Because if I grab the wheels, they're just freely spinning. So I've got nothing, I've got nothing to do. No way to save myself. Or they will overcompensate and think, okay, he's a bigger guy, I'm gonna have to do this hard, and they throw me right out the front. They just lift me up too high. I hit that little curb, or that little crack that's between the curb and the sidewalk. My front wheels stop, they're still lifting, and out the front I go. So what I do is I have somebody stand like where this yellow, the edge of my scaffold is, far enough away that I can get up, and I go, you know, wrist to wrist, grab them, and then I just tell them just to be a stationary post, just like this thing is. And then I can grab my one wheel, and I can pull, and then I'm in complete control of that. And to give you an idea, the physics of that is even when we were doing construction here at my house, I had to get up on my pool deck. And one of the guys that does a lot of work and built a car here and stuff like that, that the dude's about 95 pounds soaking wet. And just a little guy. He's probably 5'7" maybe. And like I can't even get in his car to move his car because I can't fit because he's got his seat hard mounted in his car, and I can't even get my legs into the thing because the seat is so close to the steering wheel. But he's 95 pounds, and he can get me up from the gravel onto my pool deck because I just have him lean back and be a post, and I do the pulling. So it's all on me.
And what can happen if you have the person decide to help pull you?
They can just yank you right out of the chair.
Exactly.
You know, do something like that. So a lot of people, especially they'll get a look, and you can tell they'll get that look in their face, like they're gonna do some pulling, and you know, and then you say, no, don't pull, just be a post. I'll do it. And you know, a lot of times, a lot of the people that have helped me do stuff like that have been considerably smaller than me, and it works almost flawlessly every time. The only person that I've almost tipped over is my dad, because he just wasn't ready for it. So other than that, if you prepare the people and offer clear and clear communication on what's going to happen, then everything should be fine.
And I think that's the important thing, is just, you know, no matter what it is, if someone's offering you help, is to make sure that you're telling them exactly what it is that you want them to do, how exactly you want them to help. Because if you don't, then who knows what's going to happen. Then that's where you get yanked out of your chair. That's where, you know, yes, you got up the curb, but you're sitting on the ground on the curb, and your chair is rolled down the street somewhere. So it's being as clear and concise as you can with the directions that you're giving to that person. Good points. Any questions about utilizing someone to help to get you up and you know, up a curb and stuff like that? And was that something that you guys did when you were in rehab, Joshua?
Braiding up curbs and stuff?
Yeah.
I actually learned a different way, which isn't as good. But it requires, it's kind of getting the casters up on the curb and then kind of leaning forward and then just in one go going up. And
Okay. Oh yeah.
That's how I've been doing it so far. I think it kind of limits the amount of curbs you can go up.
Yeah, because it's a really hard thing to do on a very tall curb, definitely.
Right. So we definitely had like some difficult curbs where we were just like, you know, this is just not going to be possible.
Yeah.
But my other friend, who is also in a wheelchair, she taught me the you know, giving your hand out and you know, using that as like a post, you know, to go up.
Exactly. And if you're you know, if you happen to be with somebody who is also in a wheelchair, and so if they're good at getting up a curb, not as well as, maybe they're better at getting up a curb than you are, they can get up the curb, turn themselves sideways, and then reach their arm out and do the same thing that Corbin just did with the post there, so that they're stabilizing themselves, and then you're just using them as a stationary object to pull yourself up. So so that's certainly if you're out with other people in wheelchairs, and I know that you know, a lot of people have done that in the past, where they're out with a group of people and there's more than one wheelchair user, and you know, you're going to be out with people that have, you know, either better skills or maybe not as good as skills as you have. So it's always, I think it's always kind of a good learning experience, just being with another person in a chair, going out and about and doing stuff. And that's what we'll be talking about next week's class is going out in the community. Dominic, I see that you have a doorway behind you. So
Yes.
so let's talk about going through that doorway and opening and closing that door, and what kind of things you think about when you're opening and closing doors. What I know this is probably an office door in your home, so I'm assuming that it's not some 100-pound door that you gotta open, but also talk about doors that have resistance to them and the things that you kind of go through that you've got to be able to get through that doorway.
Yeah. So actually, kind of as a segue between the two, we were talking about curbs, and sometimes there's a tall threshold in a door that you have to get up and over to get into a building somewhere. And just like Corbin was showing with the scaffold, you can actually use the doorway. I'll actually grab the far side of the doorway, I'll pop my front wheels up onto the higher part, whatever it is, inside or outside, and I'll grab the doorway and actually pull myself up that way. Kind of like Josh was saying, where you kind of muscle up that curb, but not using your wheels. You're actually using the doorway, and you just want to grab kind of a almost shoulder height spot or a little bit higher, and pull yourself up into the door. That and again, like Corbin said, there's when you're out in the public, there's signposts and different things like that you can use in the same way to pull yourself up. Really the basics on a doorway is like Brian was saying, you survey the door. Bless you.
Excuse me, sorry.
One is whether the door has, like he was saying, an opener or closer on the door. A lot of times that will make more resistance when trying to open the door. The other thing is to look at is whether the door swings towards you or away from you. Because again, it's a different technique in getting through the door.
We lost your volume there, Dominic. We can't hear you anymore. Can you hear us?
And I'll grab with this hand.
There we go.
With my other hand, I'll actually pull my wheelchair back and open the door at the same time. And then you can go right through that way. If the door opened away from you, then it's a matter of same thing, one-handed, pushing through the door, and you're actually kind of using the door handle as your other wheel. It's a way to stabilize yourself and pull yourself through, and maintain control of your chair. It's just another point of what I want to say, control, or it's a solid point to be able to move yourself with. And also too, if again, like this, or there's no closer or anything on it, if there's a closer, or the door is super heavy, whatever that resistance is, you may have to pull back a little bit harder on your wheel and on the wheel. There might be more momentum or force that you might have to apply to get that door to open. And then also too, like I said earlier, sometimes there's thresholds in the middle. Even if it's just a low little bump, you have to be aware of that in going through as well. Interiors and houses, when there's a change in flooring, when it goes from carpet to tile or carpet to wood or anything like that, there will be that little interchange threshold. And the smaller casters, they'll catch on that and they'll stop you from going through the doorway. So you have to be aware of that as well.
Cool. What about how do you approach doors that that have that bar across them to push them to get it to open? Like you got a big glass door. What are you a momentum person? Are you someone who just rolls up to it and just goes through it? What do you
I tend to use momentum as much as possible. It's your friend. It's the same thing with the curbs. The difference between the way Corbin showed doing a curb up and the way Joshua was talking about is it's momentum. It's your friend. It helps you. It makes things so much easier. So to be able to grab that door and push through, you know, give it a good nudge, and then it almost kind of pulls you. If you do it right, the doorway will open and it'll pull you right through as well. Or if you give a good push against the door jamb or your wheel and you pull the door, you can swing that door very easily and come through. It kind of a bit of technique, you know, and timing. Again, with a lot of these things, it comes with experience. It comes from learning and doing it multiple times. You learn those little tricks and little nuances that every one of these movements takes. All of us, again, have been doing this a long time. So it becomes second nature. But in the very beginning, you're on a learning curve. You're trying to figure out how to do these things, just how much it takes to pull a door open or push a door, just right where you want to put your hands, those sort of different things. And it's just the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the easier it gets.
That makes sense. Now, I know that Karen, you're in a power chair. So you have to approach doorways a little bit, door opening and closing a little bit differently than who's in a manual chair. Can you talk about some of the things that you do when you're having to approach a door that you got to deal with?
Yeah, because I drive my chair with my right hand, I always have to open it with my left hand. I'll either open it with my hand or I use my feet a lot. I'll start the door open a little bit and I'll push it with my feet and I'll push it with my arm, kind of a step-by-step process.
So when you say push it with your feet, now I know that you do not have movement in your feet, correct?
Correct.
So when you say I'm using my feet, explain that a little bit, because I know what you're doing, but I don't think everybody knows what you're doing.
Yeah, I'll push the door open a little bit and then I'll move my chair forward using my feet till I can't reach it. It's hard to explain it, and I don't have a door here that pushes out. So I just use my feet a lot to push the door open.
So you get the door open wide enough that you can turn your power chair into the doorway and then just kind of keep moving it open as you go through it.
As I go through, yeah. Yeah, if it opens to the left, then that way I can get it open enough. Or if I can't, then I'll open it part way and I'll roll in backwards.
Oh, okay, that's a clever idea too.
Yeah, depending where I'm at and how heavy the door is, but I do use my feet a lot to help me.
Okay.
Because I have short arms.
That always makes it a challenge.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does.
And then Eric or Corbin, what do you guys, when you're looking at doors and assessing them as you're coming up to them, what do you guys do? Eric, I'll start with you.
For me, it's momentum. Is it a push? Is it a pull? Because if it's a push door, then I can use momentum and just push right through it. If it's a pull door, I do a two-hand pull a lot of times, where I'll push on one side and pull on the other like that, and then that'll just start the rotation of my chair, and then I can slip right out. Or what I'll do is I'll approach from the side, and these are doors that have to them. They have the springs on. So I'll approach from the side, and I'll keep my phone going. I'll do the pull at the same time and then spin around and swing. So it becomes one fluid motion for me. You know, I had a person in a friend of mine sit in my wheelchair, and he's like, doors are easy for you, aren't they? And I said, oh yeah. And you lose all your momentum when you go through the first door, and then you're stuck in the second. He was stuck in there for like a half an hour. He could not get out. So, you know, there's some real issues that come with going through double doors or doors that have to them, because like momentum doesn't work when you have that high resistance. You push it halfway, and all of a sudden it goes at, you know, that hard stop, and then it's just, you got to muscle through it at that point. It's just not fun. And believe it or not, it's mostly the doors that have the automatic openers on it that do that stuff. So I tend to go to the doors that don't have the automatic openers, because they open a lot easier than.
Really?
Yeah, the automatic openers tend to have a stronger spring, and so because you're supposed to use the automatic opening door, but
Oh, right. Okay, now I'm following. Okay. Well, why don't you just push the button then?
9 times out of 10, I just don't.
Okay.
Or they don't work.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times you're right. A lot of times they don't work.
Yeah.
You can't find the button.
Show a lot of
Or you
times.
can't find the button. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know here at the house, if I can't, our door, like our inside door opens in, the outside screen opens out. So once I go outside, I'll take my reacher with me. I'll reach in, I'll grab the door handle and pull the door shut. And then when I am in the house to close the screen, I'll either grab a hanger, well, I'll reach my hand in where the edge of the door and the door frame is, and I'll pull it just enough till my fingers get a little bit tight, and then I'll use a hanger to close the screen door.
Yeah, I've pinched my fingers multiple times doing
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I do that all the time too at home.
Yeah, I've done it at the office too.
Corbin, was it you that had the handle in the middle of the door?
Yes.
Did you do that? I remember that from way back in the day. So to make it easier, some people like in their homes will actually put like a looped handle right in the middle of the doorway, so that you'll have to try to reach all the way to the other doorknob.
Yeah, so you just reach right behind you, grab that handle, and pull it shut with you.
That's
You know,
an idea.
the most important thing I could say about door opening and stuff is, you know, I like to think we live in a world that tries to accommodate, but in all reality, it's us that have to be adaptable. We got to figure it out. We got to figure out how to make it all work. So if you take on the attitude that, you know, the world owes you something, that's not very far. If you take on the attitude that, hey, you know, I need to get somewhere, I need to get it, I need to go for it, figure it out as you go, and your brain will just learn as you go, and you'll figure out, and you'll get to know what you can and can't do. So, and you know, trial and error sucks sometimes. I'm not going to say it doesn't. You know, I've fallen out, it's happened, but you know what? Pride can recover.
You have to think outside the box sometimes.
Yep. The box isn't square. It really isn't.
Nope.
And there's also the school of hard knocks.
Oh yeah, been through a lot.
So that you know, as Dominic has pointed out, coming out of the chair numbers of times. So you know, it's you learn every time. You know, every time something doesn't go the way it's supposed to go, you learn something.
Yeah.
And it helps you to be, hopefully it helps you to be that much, you know, that much better moving around your environment, and just hopefully helping you to be that much more in control of what is, you know, what's going on with your environment and everything.
Yeah. The one big thing to remember, Joshua, it's not a matter if you fall out of your chair, it's when. And when you do, get that cushion underneath your butt.
Oh, that's a big one.
So that you don't burn it, especially here in Arizona.
Yeah,
Doors.
especially in the summertime.
Yeah, when you're cooking too, you cannot feel the top of your legs. Always put a cutting board or something on top of your legs. Don't ever forget that, because you'll get some major blisters on your thighs. I know a lot of people who've done that already. So they forget and they just lay their frying pan right on their leg, like it's
Ouch.
just because you can't feel it.
Is that Dominic raising his hand there that this might be something he's done before?
Yeah,
Right.
time 3.
So yeah, kind of a brain damaged moment there. This was years and years ago. I was making a pot of pasta, and I needed to go. I had like a galley kitchen, so the sink was across the aisleway, and so I needed to pour obviously the water out. Well, I couldn't move with the pot in my hand, so I just thought, well, I'll just set it on my lap and turn real quick, and then put it, in the sink and pour it all out. Well, this is a 200-degree pot of water.
Yeah, the boiling water, you mean? That
It was
boiling hot
boiling.
water, right?
Yeah. So, so as I set it down, and then I proceeded to pour it out and finish everything. Didn't really think of it until later when I was actually getting changed. I was getting into my PJs or whatever it was, and I looked, and there was a giant, like, baseball-sized blister on the top of my thigh, and I went, "Oh, yeah, that probably wasn't the smartest thing I could have ever done."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's not something you would have normally done if you were sitting in a chair at your, when you were not using a wheelchair, just sitting in a chair. You wouldn't think, oh, I'm going to put this pot of boiling hot water on my lap. It's not a problem.
But it wasn't even thinking about hot. Like, just thought, oh, it's just a pot of water. I need to do this. I need to make this turn. Not
turn and go.
thinking,
Like, oops, turn and burn.
Turn and burn.
Okay, well that's a great story. Is there still a big blister? Is there still a scar on your leg from that?
There is actually a divot in my thigh. It burned it so bad it took flesh out, and there's a giant scar and no hair in that one spot. It's a constant reminder.
I have a couple of those.
Yeah, great conversation piece.
Yeah.
Hangers are your friend, by the way.
Yeah.
You're going to drop stuff off your lap. That's just another thing. It's just going to happen. Your car keys, your water bottle, whatever. Anything that you use all the time, it's good to have something with a loop in it and then have a hanger available to pick that stuff up. So,
Little hanger. Yep.
yeah, we highly recommend the hanger. The hanger is a lifesaver.
That's one of the things too to talk about. Corbin.
Oh, we lost your audio there, Dominic.
Dominic, you've gone silent.
You're buffering.
And he's still talking away too.
Still talking away.
Adaptable. Uh-oh.
Hey, Dominic, can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Okay,
You
so
buffered real bad.
for about the past minute that you were talking, we heard absolutely nothing.
Oh, geez. Okay, so you can hear me now, though.
Yes.
You
Okay.
told Corbin.
So like Corbin and I'm trying to think of how far back, but Corbin and I, we work on cars. We do a lot of different things where you inevitably have to lift something heavy. And like Eric was saying, you have to be adaptable to figuring different things out, looking outside of the box, and figuring out how to do things in an easier manner. For example, one of the things I was able to acquire an actual Hoyer lift. That's a patient lift. It's supposed to lift people in a sling. I use it to actually lift engine blocks and transmissions and things that are heavy. It has a capacity of like 400 pounds. And so, yes. You got the engine cherry picker. I've got one of those too. But it's something that you have to adapt your environment. And that's, we're talking about navigating the environment. But things like I've had to custom build my benches so that they're at the correct height. It's something I can roll under. Sometimes the legs are getting in the way of a typical workbench. You have to learn and maybe build things, but work around those situations. A lot of times it's not going to be accessible, and you have to figure that way out. If you want to do something, you're going to have to, figure out a trick. Was it done? He was in these in the spring session, and he's quadriplegic, doesn't have the use in his hands, and so he was, like Eric was saying, he's used like coat hangers to pick up things off from the ground that he's dropped, or he put something simple as like a zip tie in his wallet so that he can just hook his thumb in that zip tie and grab his wallet out of the bag on his chair. There's a lot of times it's very, very crude things that can be an easy fix, and make something so much easier for you.
Good points. Glad we could hear you that time. Yeah, so those are all good information. And when you talked about modifying your environment, I'm looking at the door behind you. Does your door have offset hinges on it?
It does.
Oh, yeah.
So all the rooms.
Okay, so once we get your video back, there we go. Okay, now you're back. So talk about, since you talked about a little bit about modifying the environment and things. Talk about them a little bit, and then we can hopefully kind of show what they do when you open the door.
So yeah, so one of the things, like Brian was saying, is the doorways. This house is an old house. It was built in like the late 70s, early 80s, and so obviously ADA wasn't applicable, and they didn't make doorways usually very wide, and so with my doors, what I did was I used an offset hinge, and what that does is normally when you open a door, the door, even though it's sideways, is still impeding in the opening of the door. And so there's usually about 1.5 inches, 2 inches that it's constricting then that doorway. So a lot of times your chair doesn't fit through. So what I've put in, hopefully I can actually show it.
A little higher, a little higher. Oh, a little lower, a little lower. There you go. Perfect.
So that's an offset hinge. And what it does is when you open the doorway, now the door is actually out of the opening.
Show how big of a gap there is between the door and the frame. So you'll see like the door is open, the barrel of the hinge is about 1.5 inches, 2 inches behind the door now. So see how the door is open past the frame?
So it made the door essentially, whatever the thickness of the door, move that whole thickness over to the side. Now you made the doorway either up to 1.5 inches or 2 inches wider. So if your chair was just barely fitting through the doorway, now you've got that, so it's wider. It's now even wider and may fit through a lot easier.
The very first one that I did was actually my bathroom, the main bathroom in my house, because my chair, even though it's very skinny, it would rub on the door jamb and the door itself. It was just barely enough. And by putting that hinge in, now I can go in and out and not rub, not really bump into things. So it made a big, big difference, even just that little bit.
And in the grand scheme of things, they're not that expensive, and they're even something you get at the Home Depot nowadays.
Yeah.
So they're. It seems to me like I think they're like $50 a pair or something like that. I'm not sure the exact price, but something like that. I mean, yeah, I know they're more expensive than a regular door hinge. What's that?
I was just going to say, I didn't know the price because I was given all the hinges I had.
Okay.
You can
Yeah,
get them
there's
on
something
Amazon.
like that.
You can
It's
get them on
like-
Amazon too.
Yeah, oh, you can get anything on Amazon. Yeah, and so that's an easy fix that to make a doorway just a tiny bit wider, that maybe that makes all the difference in how you get in and out of the bathroom or your bedroom or wherever it is that you need to be able to roll around in your house. That just makes a big difference in how your chair rolls around in there.
And to give you guys an idea too, on the other side of modifications, you can go a little bit more elaborate, and it's something that's there, and if you want it, is like with kitchen cabinets. So your upper cabinets, you know, obviously you can usually only reach maybe the bottom shelf. I know when I was in rehab, they had like a mock kitchen, and one of the first things they taught me to do was to cook brownies. Well, they put the brownie mix up on the top shelf. And so up on the very top cupboard, and it's like, okay, so how am I supposed to get that? What's that?
Bastards.
I know, right?
Damn therapists.
Therapists, they hate handicapped people. So what I ended up doing is, at that time, they had those like grabbers, you know, the little squeezable reachers, and I was able to grab the box from the top shelf. I've since learned to use like a broomstick or whatever. But on the modification things, if it's your own home, there's things, they actually have hinges that you can mount cabinetry to, and you actually have a handle at the bottom, and you can bring the cabinet out and down to the countertop level. So there are a lot of things out there that you can use to make things more accessible. And a lot of times they're not even like quoted or titled as something that's accessible. There's a lot of things that never were meant to be for wheelchair users, but they can serve a purpose for us.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Does anybody have any other comments about going through doors or doorways or anything that we've covered this evening? Because we're just coming up on our time here about.
Anybody ever heard of row wheels?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you heard of it, Brian or Christine?
Are they the kind that you're, if you're using in a manual wheelchair, you're kind of cranking them back and forth like this?
No, you
No.
go
Okay.
backwards to go
You pull
forward.
backwards on them.
Oh yes, I have. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
familiar with those.
I
Yeah.
found a 30-second video if anybody wants to watch it.
That'd be interesting to see.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Oops.
Also, Joshua, if you want to add me on Facebook or anything like that, feel free to do that, okay?
Can you see it?
Will do. Thank you.
Oh, where's the sound? Oh, I have it muted. Duh.
Well, there you go.
Oh, it was just music.
It's bouncing around on my screen, not about anybody else's.
Yeah, it's real jerky. It's hard to tell.
So I did a study at a Rancho Los Amigos hospital in California with those wheels.
It's wild. I'd never heard of them before.
What about popping wheelies and stuff with that, you know?
So that is doing anything normal wheelchair, especially if you've been in a chair for a while. It is it just messes with your mind, because
Everything's backwards.
Everything's backwards. So to move forward, you pull backwards.
Yeah.
To go backwards, you push forward.
I'd be hitting my head real quick on that one.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't go well. Trust me.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that'd be pretty funny to see when you guys do those. Could be highly entertaining.
I think
It's comedy.
do it.
I'm gonna reach out to them and see if they want to be a vendor at our conference, which we're gonna do our conference in March.
Nice.
So,
Back at the same place as last year?
yep,
Okay, cool.
Desert Willow. I'll work on getting everything out this week. Get all the vendors.
All right. So unless anybody has any other questions or comments, our third class next week is going to be on travel with your chair. So we're going to talk about getting into and hopefully we got some guys are going to show some stuff and getting in and out of their vehicles. And then we're also going to talk about travel, not only just going out and about in the town, but also, getting onto a plane, whether it's locally here in the States or internationally travel. We have a number of people that have traveled the world in their chair. So we're going to make use of their expertise there. And then, so going through the airport, getting on the plane, going out with friends and things like that. So getting out and about on the town is going to be our topic for next week.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any other questions here before we adjourn for the evening?
Dominic, check your email. I sent you something, okay?
And,
Okay.
and the link will be the same for the rest of the classes.
Yes. Okay, cool. Well, thank you everybody for attending this evening, and have a great week and be safe out there.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Take care.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.